back. We got Val, guys, ladies and gentlemen. Super excited about this. Let's go ahead and get this queued up. Val, how are you doing today? Thank you for joining us.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here in outer space.
Heck yeah, it should be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Make sure we strap all of our stuff down because I've had some things float away. It's getting a little wild. Getting a little wild.
Yeah,
Also,
I brought my dry packed food, so I'm ready to go.
there you go. I love that stuff. Always love that freeze dried ice cream.
Freeze dried ice cream. Oh, I remember having that in like elementary school and thinking it was so gross.
But now I'm like, oh, I could go for some. I could definitely go for some.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man. Cool, ladies and gentlemen. Just a friendly reminder. Please make sure you put those questions in the Q&A tab so we make sure Val can, also tackle those questions. But cool, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna go ahead and let Val take this away. So Val, I'm gonna go and step outside. Maybe squeegee the windshield on our space station. But let me know if you need anything. I'll see you towards the Q&A. All right.
Yeah, and I can use the arrows at the bottom, right?
Oh yeah,
For
for sure, for
advancing.
sure.
Cool, cool,
And
cool.
make sure it doesn't
Thank
make
you.
sure it doesn't make sure it doesn't take your spaceship in a weird direction. See you in
Yes,
a moment.
exactly. Okay. Hey, everybody. Okay, so today we're going to talk about building emails that build brand loyalty. So we want our emails to help connect people to our brand. And that's what we're going to review in the next 20-ish minutes. And we'll leave plenty of room for a Q&A at the end. So, a little bit about me. I am the director of lifecycle and retention marketing at ByHeart. We are a baby formula company. I spent about 2 years at Klaviyo before I came here, and then about 10 years before that, doing consulting for a number of different e-commerce and software brands. So we're going to cover a bunch today, but kind of three key things are how to grow your MRR, so your monthly recurring revenue, without going and looking for new customers. So zero acquisition needed game plan. And then a plan for winning back your canceled customers. Those are still, again, you don't need to go and acquire new ones. And then lastly, we will talk about these are three things, but there's three in number three, how three underutilized retention strategies map to emails that make a difference. So talking about email and kind of new customer acquisition and retention all through email. These are my favorite topics, so I'm going to totally geek out on you guys. There are three things that are certain in this life: death, taxes, and there's no one right answer for sales and marketing. The common answer in email is it depends. I don't know if you've heard that yet this morning. I wasn't able to tune in earlier, but I guarantee you will hear that a lot over the next 2 days. It does depend, and we have to test everything. So why not try it? You're here spending time learning, so why not give it a try? There is this stat that I've done some research into. It does date back to at least 2012, if not earlier, but we've probably all heard it. It's 5 times cheaper to keep a customer than to go get a new one. Again, that's probably a lot cheaper these days. 2012, we didn't do the amount of online acquisition channels that we have today. So from a growth and acquisition standpoint, let's see, 2012, we didn't have Instagram, I don't think. We certainly didn't have TikTok and Snapchat and all the other places where we go and acquire customers. So I bet that that's probably down to like it'd be a much higher number, actually. It'd be 10, 15 times cheaper to keep a customer than to go get a new one at this point. The point is that, your churn is a really important number to understand. So you want to know, when you're thinking about the customers that you're losing, your churn rate is those customers that you've lost in a period of time divided by the total number of customers that you had during that period. Understanding your churn rate is a really important metric to knowing what you're going to do about it. And if you work at a company that operates off of monthly recurring revenue, churn is a really important metric to understand, even as an email marketer. So we're going to talk about some ways that, from an email perspective, you can impact churn. One is leveraging your support team. So our support teams often do this thing of, hey, we've got a ticket in our queue, and they usually have some kind of SLA, some kind of amount of time that everyone has determined is an appropriate amount of time in which it takes to respond to a ticket. So they will go and respond to tickets, get it closed, get it on to the next one. There's usually a queue. People are waiting, and we want to have good response times from a customer support perspective. What can happen is that the actual experience the customer has can get lost in that. Yes, you're answering their question, but are you serving them down the line? That's the question we need to ask. So if you, as the email marketer, go to your CS team and you say, oh, sorry, hold on. You say, hey, on your support tickets, I would love to understand the tags that you are giving to all of your tickets that come through, because there are probably efforts that you can make from an email perspective that go along with those tags. So an example would be if you have a customer. So we sell baby formula. So I'm going to say we have customers who come in and they'll say, hey, do you have my baby has tons of allergies, and there's often like brands make allergy formula. Do you have an allergy version of your formula? Well, we don't right now. And so our support team could say like, hey, we don't, and we'll put that request in for you. And they can do that. They can give that reply. And then the next step of that is that they actually tag that ticket as product request allergy. Then when we do down the line produce an allergy formula, then we can go to those customers who had that tag and we can send them an email. So this is an email that I actually got from a when I was consulting, where we were working with a client of ours who was switching ESPs. And at the time we looked at a bunch of different options, and they had expressed interest in Customer IO as a solution at one time. Customer IO tracked that the client of mine really wanted a visual workflow builder. And it sounds like a lot of people wanted this visual workflow builder, and the product team decided to build it. And so my client got an email that while we were going through this ESP sourcing process that said, hey, we want to address the question that you had of this visual workflow builder. We heard your feedback. It actually says feedback heard, not just from you all, but a lot of people we've been excited to work with where this has been a desire. And this email included, it's a screenshot, but this is actually a GIF of the new product in action. So this kind of email can only happen when you have that kind of tagging system from your CS team. You can do it for product releases. You can do it for new pages on the website, information that you want to provide. If you as an email marketer work closely with your CS team, you could really make an impact by being able to say, hey, we can now send a campaign out to all those customers who requested that particular feature or information, and have an impact on winning back those customers. I can tell you from my experience with this client that they actually did end up going back to Customer IO as their ESP because of this email that happened at a very timely moment. Yours might not always be as timely for your customers who maybe have churned off or who have canceled or are less active with your product. If we don't have an allergy formula for a baby who has allergies, they can't use our formula. And maybe by the time we develop an allergy formula, that baby has aged out of needing formula. That's quite likely for us. For software or another product, if somebody wants a red shirt and you only sell blue and green, and then you make a red shirt and you email all the people who wanted red shirts, then it's likely that they'll grab your red shirt. You don't kind of really run out of a period of time in which you use red shirts. So all that to say, work closely with your CS team to actually build that relationship between what your customers want and are asking for, and then what you deliver from an email perspective. So here's another example. Just being really personal in that. So the customer support experience is one that is very personal. It's usually text-based. It's very like one-to-one. And you should, when you're reflecting that experience back in your email marketing, you want to create emails that actually feel that way too. So it's a personal response. It's written in a text-based way, even just the very casual subject line. There's lots of ways that you can approach this relationship, but continuing that one-to-one feeling through email is really crucial in extending that CS experience. So, number 2, being human. It seems like it might be a pretty straightforward strategy, but we often forget that when we're looking at these computer screens all day, that there are actual human beings on the other side of the computer screen. So you want to get to know those people. And as an email marketer, as someone who comes up with campaigns and flows and ideas, your brand team might be doing this. Other people in your product marketing team might be doing this. But I think it's important that as email people, we all understand this as well. Get on calls with your customers, or sit in with your product team or brand team as they do calls. Ask them questions about them. So this is kind of like warming them up to get to answer the questions you actually have. So ask them about their work. So if you sell a B2C product, maybe you're going to ask them something a little bit different. But if you're a B2B, these questions are kind of written for a B2B perspective. Maybe you're going to ask them about their job title, their role at work. What are they working on right now? What's the biggest problem they're facing with their work? B2C, you're maybe going to ask them more about like, hey, what does a day-to-day look like for you? If you sell fitness apparel, maybe you're going to ask them like, what's their gym routine? What are they working on at the gym? And what are the hurdles that they're facing? And then you can dive in and start talking about your product. You're going to ask them what happened that led them to your product. You're going to ask them what convinced them that your product was the right thing for them. Maybe you're talking to somebody who has recently canceled or churned. You could ask them what happened that told them, no, this is no longer the right product for me. And then you want to find out what they were skeptical or anxious about when they made their purchase. Is there something that they really had questions about? And maybe if they are someone who never actually purchased, you'll ask them what prevented them from using that product long term. Getting to know your customers, and in this way, this is a strategy that is often referred to in the product world as jobs to be done. You can do some research. I'm happy to share some links when we're done at where I learned about jobs to be done. But it's a really great way to understand what is the job that your customer has for your product, and how can you address that in your email. So email teams, everyone here, we all work for different companies. Some of you are a one-person email team and you do all the copy, all the design, all the coding, create the strategy, do all of it. And so understanding your customers at this level is going to be very vital. Some of you might work on a more expansive email team where you are handed copy or designs. Somebody else is coding it and you're plugging it in. Maybe you are doing a drag and drop builder and dropping copy in. Email is still the channel that you work in and ultimately are responsible for the results of. So I think like building the relationships internally where you have this understanding of your customers and you're able to say like, there's some language here that doesn't feel right, or I wonder if we can approach it from this perspective. That obviously that's an entirely different talk on building internal buy-in, which if you came to Litmus Live, you probably heard me give there. But that relationship internally to be able to speak to what your customers want and need. I think the foundation of that is actually having these conversations with your customers, or again, if they're already happening somewhere else in your company, sitting in on those, because you don't really have a leg to stand on in that like, hey, this isn't right conversation if you don't have the experience of who your customer actually is. Number 3, making everything habits. So monthly recurring revenue is about the habit of using the product, building in the habit of the customer leveraging the product in their life is what's going to keep them coming back. If you sell bone broth and the customer uses it for a week, maybe doesn't get results right away, and so they quit, they're not going to be your customer on a monthly recurring basis because they're just not going to come back. They have too much in their pantry already. Same for software. If they're not using your software on a regular basis, I think a lot of software brands really rely on the customers who don't use the product and keep paying. But I think it's a really key opportunity to engage with those customers and find out like, hey, why are you not using the product? Make the product valuable to them. Again, this is from Jobs to Be Done frameworks, but and you can see this in a lot of different ways, the hero's journey and different places throughout kind of the like user experience design, but really thinking about like, hey, what are these different pathways? So as they move through, and this is an experience they have in your emails as well. What is the journey that your customers take through emails, and where are the opportunities to kind of cash in on additional touch points and to help guide customers, to give them the opportunity to like take a course, learn a educational piece, read a blog post. Where can you engage with them that helps them continue to use your product over and over again? Because ultimately, if they're not using the product, eventually they will churn on their own. And they might even ask for refunds. They might process a chargeback. So you want to protect your company against that and really understand the path, how they go through it, and then message toward that end. So an example of that is actually from Customer IO, who I mentioned earlier. So this is a welcome email, an onboarding email that a customer is getting. And what they do is they actually give the customer an opportunity, instead of sending, hey, we're just going to automatically send you this onboarding and all of our like welcome flows. So kind of the normal plan would be to say, hey, we're just going to send eight emails over the next 2 weeks and get these new customers through our welcome setup for the software. And maybe, on the B2C side, you might have something similar. This email offers the customer the opportunity to choose that. So it actually outlines for them, hey, this is a course that's here for you to teach you how to launch your first campaign. And here's what you're going to get one every business day. It tells them exactly what to expect, and they get to choose if that's something that they want. And you can actually leverage data you learn from this email send to determine what else needs to happen from an email perspective. So you could find out, wow, lots of people really want this course, which is then you can take back to your education team there and see if like, hey, do the clicks of people saying, yes, they want this actually then lead to views of the information, and then to the product team, does that lead to a product adoption? If people aren't clicking on this email, then maybe you want to approach it from a different perspective. Maybe it needs to be less lessons, or maybe it needs to be delivered in a different way. All of those things it's all data pieces, and data is what drives our ability to do our jobs. Now, Albert Einstein said that everything in life should be as simple as possible, but not simpler. And I think that is true for email. It goes from everything from onboarding, long-term retention. I have always felt like long-term customer retention actually comes from really good onboarding. So those onboarding experiences, that experience they have with their customer service team, all those initial building with the brand moments, that a lot of them are driven through email. That's actually what leads to long-term retention. So when I was consulting, a lot of people would come to me and say like, hey, how do we address our retention problem? And I never started at the retention point. I always started at that customer onboarding point. What's happening in those early days that's going to build for a relationship that lasts for long-term retention? And I want to give you an opportunity to grab what is called the dinner party strategy. I do not have time in email camp today to go through the dinner party strategy in full. And I really want you to be able to do that. But the goal of the dinner party strategy is exactly that. It's taking them from onboarding to long-term retention. If you think about a dinner party, so your dinner parties, if you've ever been to one or hosted one, you often aren't greeted at the front door with this. The host has a steak in their hand on a plate and says, "Here you go, let's eat." That has probably never happened in the history of dinner parties, because it would feel really, really weird. And yet, that is what we're doing with our products when we show up with email in people's inboxes when they've just joined. So, you want to walk them through the dinner party experience, which is you want to give them a warm welcome. You want to show them around. You want to give them appetizers, which are like little tastes of what's to come. Then you're going to sit down and you're going to enjoy a main course. You might have a little bit of dessert. Then you're going to invite them to come back. That's typically the flow of an actual dinner party. And you can apply that to your customer onboarding. You can go through and say, "Hey, let's build out this experience so we're not shoving the product in their face right away, but we're hinting at what's to come and we're educating along the way." That is what then ultimately leads to long-term retention because they feel like they are seen and heard. And gosh, isn't that all any of us want, is to feel seen and heard in this world? And the dinner party strategy is going to do that for you. I have time left for questions. I think that I was looking in Q&A, so I think there's a few that we can address.
Oh yeah,
Thomas,
this is
how's
time.
outer space?
Oh, I was able to move the space station a little bit, so I'm on a different location now. But even though my helmet keeps
Fantastic.
disappearing, but yeah. So okay, Val, we got some amazing questions, so I can't wait to dive into these. So let's get going.
Yeah.
First and foremost, from a former colleague of ours, Nick Lafferty. Good to see you, bud. But he wanted to know, and I love this question. But oops, wrong one. We'll get back to you here in just a moment, Josh. But from Nick, he said, how effective is the reply to this email tactic you showed me from Dave Gerhardt these days? It's been a long time
Yeah.
since he's been at Drift, and I've seen that tactic become less and less effective over time as everyone is asking it. What do you think, Val?
Yeah. So it has been a long time since, and I use that email still because there was a period of time where everyone was asking it. And so it was less effective. And now it's less commonly used. And so I think it's becoming effective again, right? Like things kind of have these like dips and peaks where everybody uses it. I think it's kind of like the intern email strategy of like, oops, the intern sent that. Everyone did that for a while, like Brooklinen did it and then everybody did it, and so it became less effective. But now I think a couple of years with that gone, I think if someone were to send an intern email again, it wouldn't be like, okay, I think these things come and go, and it's definitely worth, and this is again my answer of like, it depends. You have to test it and see, like, just because you've seen a lot of people use something and maybe you feel like it's not effective on you, it doesn't mean it's not effective for your audience. So test it, see if you get replies to those emails. If you don't, you can take it out. I think there's like absolutely no harm in testing it, particularly if you maybe only test to like a portion of your audience or you test for a set period of time. But yeah, those tactics that come and go, as long as it's not an RE or a forward in the subject line, that one can stay. Like, email's not dead, but those should be dead for sure.
Exactly. Love it. Love that name too. Also, that's the name of our podcast. Email's not dead. Listen to it when you get a moment.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on here. This was a pretty cool one. This one came in from Laura. Laura Perry was asking, how do you build loyalty with customers when you are a temporary needs-based product? Example, temporary insurance. The customer might not always need us, but we want to be there when they do. Val, what are we thinking?
For sure. Laura, you are speaking my language. We are a baby formula company and customers need us for a year, and only a year, and yet also every time they have a baby. So very similar situation. I think that building the loyalty with customers in between use cases is all about providing value. outside of your actual product. So in the world of email, I think it's really important to give them an opportunity to pause with you. So instead of like, if you, the only option they have is to unsubscribe from your emails when they no longer need your product, that's what they're going to do. But if you give them an option to pause, hey, check back with me in 6 months to see if I need the product again, then you are opening yourself up to keep those customers more long term. You also can create pathways for them to become advocates for your brand. So, you know, from that perspective, they might not need your product, but other people in their lives may. And they can be advocates for the brand, which then keeps them connected. And gosh, once you tell someone, hey, I use this and I loved it, it's kind of hard, like from a just from a baby formula perspective, like somebody says, I use and love ByHeart, and they tell their friends and family that, and then they have another kid, the assumption is going to be that they're going to use ByHeart again. So, you know, if it's kind of awkward then if you go off and use a different brand. So I think like that's create those pathways to advocacy and then also offer them opportunities to kind of be the driver of their own customer experience.
Got it. Got it. All right. Looks like we got time for maybe one more here. I like this one from Ron. Ron wanted to know what should be, what would be some good onboarding strategies to ensure good retention?
Yeah. So, and I think maybe Ron asked this like just before I talked about dinner party strategy, but I do think it's worth checking that out. And really, it's about building relationship early and often, giving them like making them feel like they are in the driver's seat of their experience of your brand. And then also, yeah, like so when you think about a dinner party strategy, that idea of like appetizers and dessert, you might be like, what's that in email? But it's really like, what are those complementary experiences that they have? So what are the blog posts or YouTube videos that are relevant to your product that you can show them? What are the partnerships you have with other brands that you can you know, make them aware of? So really showing them the like holistic experience. And I think as you know, we tend to just like push product and adoption and like use all of our products, buy all the things, use every inch of our software. And instead of thinking about like, well, what do you want as a customer? When you walk in a retail store, do you like when somebody comes up to you and is like, hey, what do you need? I'm happy to help you. Like, let me go help you pick out a pair of pants. Do you like this shirt? That's obnoxious. But if they come in and they're, you know, you walk in the store and you're looking at some things and they're like, oh, that's been really popular with, you know, in the last few days. And, you know, let me know if I can grab a size for you. And they kind of like build a relationship with you. That's a much better experience. And we forget that we are offering the same thing just digitally. So create as much of a real in-person experience as you can from a digital perspective.
Exactly. Keep it human. Keep it how you want it to.
Yes.
Yeah. Keep it how you want to have those actual human interactions. Because it's like I go with my fiance to some store and they hound her asking, "Do you want a basket? Do you want to try this?" It's like, hold on, let her shop. She's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Like,
we
let me
are
breathe.
grown-ups and we know how to go through the store. I think if you decide to do a second podcast, it should be Keep It Human, because that
Ah,
is a really good tagline to remember when we're operating any area of a digital business, but particularly email. I got asked a lot when I was consulting about, hey, I know you do a lot of like B2C and e-commerce and kind of, you know, small business software, but what about B2B? And I think I even see there's something about like, would you take any different actions if you were selling more premium products? Joshua asked that, got a lot of upvotes. So I'll address that too in these last few seconds is like, no, you don't. Because ultimately you're sending an email and an individual person is opening that email. You
yep.
know, B2B is the same. It's not a business is not opening the email. An individual decision maker is opening the email. And even if they're not the decision maker, they're a human being who is experiencing your email and they're going to decide whether they go to the decision maker or not.
Yep.
So, you know, you have to remember that like premium product, B2B, B2C, it's all the same. It's an individual human on the other side of that inbox, opening your email and experiencing it. So,
Yep.
yeah.
For sure. For sure. Awesome, Val. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming by and stopping
Absolutely.
by and being with us and joining us for your first email camp. Hope to have you back again. And just thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. I'm going to float off now.
All right. Take care, Val. Good seeing you.
See ya.
See ya. All right, ladies and gentlemen, going to move on here. We're going to have a little break. I'm going to meet you all on the break side. So see you in just a